what do you feel like, or what are your thoughts on, this big entrepreneurial push, versus education? Because people are like, oh, I don't need this. I don't, what
I think it's a space for both because, again, I'm in higher education and a bit of what I'm doing because the higher education space is really tight now.
Okay.
Meaning students really have a lot of say-so and choices and options online, face-to-face, weekend classes. We're fighting for the same fish. So for me, I kind of have to have an entrepreneur spirit because how am I going to get kids to my program? So there is space for entrepreneurialism.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean,
each one of us has a story. Our journey has and is continuously impacting us. By listening to my guests share how they are discovering their best self, you will discover the best part of you. All right. Thank you guys for tuning in to Discover Your Best Self. I have with me a special guest, Miss Dr. Nicole Walters. And you guys, today she's going to talk to us about being an educator in higher education. And I'm super excited because it's important that we have people like her who are impacting the future generation. And so I want to allow her to introduce herself. So welcome to the podcast, and thank you for coming.
Thank you, Shanice. I'm super excited. So I am Dr. Nicole McNeal Walters. I work at University of St. Thomas. I'm a dean of a brand new program. I'm a founding dean of the School of Applied Science. And so we basically award degrees in cybersecurity, networking technology, and electronic technology.
So when you say a founding member, what does that mean?
So I'm the founding dean. So when the president had this vision for a college, another college on campus, he asked me if I would be the founding dean. So I wrote the prospectus, I did all the hiring, all the recruiting. So I'm the dean of my own college, and I founded it. So
and why is that important? Like, why is what you're doing, the position, and then you're also in leadership as well. Why is that important?
Yeah, so my background is I'm a school teacher. I was an elementary school teacher, and then I went up the ranks and was a school principal. Didn't ever think that I would go into higher education, but it kind of found its way to me. And I think it's important because I work at a liberal arts university in Catholic, and there aren't a lot of kids who look like me. So when I see the kids and I see them looking at me, it's important that they see someone who looks like them in leadership, primarily a woman. So I think there's another layer where you can't be who you don't see. So I think it's inspirational for students to see women in leadership, and particularly women of color.
Yes. And so I know you told us briefly your background was in education, but could you give us like a little bit backstory even before then, and how you decided to be a teacher in education?
Well, it fell into my lap because I was actually a pre-med major, and I wanted to go into dermatology, but I hated needles, which was crazy. So one year I came home to volunteer at a daycare where doctors had their kids, and I loved the kids. And so I transferred back to Houston. I went to U of H, finished my degree in education. I have 3 degrees in education, interdisciplinary studies in English and leadership, and then a doctorate in leadership as well. And I just kind of went the pathway. So I went to U of H, then I went to TSU, and then I wrapped up another degree at TSU because I'm all about my HBCUs as well.
Yes.
And that's how I got a chance to go into teaching.
So I have a double layer question.
Okay.
I like to do that. The first one is, so you're from Houston, right?
Yeah, born and raised.
So what does the impact of you being from Houston have on you working in Houston in education?
Yeah. So the thing is, since I'm a Houstonian, I get a chance to see the trends that are here in our city because it's in my background. So I went to school. I mean, I matriculated through school here in Houston. So it's kind of nice that I get a chance to see students from elementary all the way through college. And then I've kind of built relationships in Houston as well. But also as an educator, I have to kind of know what the landscape is because higher education is changing. It's very expensive. Students there are saying that they don't really want a college degree or a 4-year degree, which is why I'm really excited about my program because it's a 2-year degree, so you can get your degree and start working and make a good wage. So for me, I'm able to be in Houston, and it's exciting because right now there's innovation.
It's a lot going on.
We're in the 4th largest city in the country. There's an energy sector. There's a huge medical sector. So I feel like I'm in the cusp of,
and the school's like right in the middle of the city.
It is. So UST is like right there in the museum district. So we're around everything.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It is.
So I know you mentioned you going to HBCU.
Yeah.
So why go to a private Catholic, work at a private Catholic
yeah,
school?
well,
what is that?
I didn't seek it. So
right,
I really,
right.
when I graduated from TSU, I wanted to actually work at TSU.
Okay.
And my mentor, who actually is the Dean of the School of Education, Lillian Potes, said, you have a great education here from TSU. We want you to go out and do something great with this education.
Right.
Again, I went back to being a principal. I didn't
Okay.
think that I'd be at UST.
Right.
And then a really dear friend of mine was working there. And so she said, why don't you come with me? Long story short, I got hired on the spot.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And that's just kind of how God works. But I love being there because I get to bring all these great things that I learned from my HBCU, and it nestles really well into what I'm doing.
Yeah, I think that's awesome because I didn't get an opportunity to go to a HBCU, and sometimes I wish that I did.
It's great.
Yeah.
It's nothing like it.
When you have people like you, when you go to a PW, you go to those schools and you're like, man, I don't see anyone like me. But then when you're able to find someone like you to be able to help you matriculate through the program, you're like, okay, I needed that person.
Yes. That's the thing. And that's why
important.
people ask me, why do I stay?
Right.
And because believe me, I have colleagues who are college presidents at HBCUs and, friends that I'm really, close to that they work there and they love it.
Right.
And I tell them all the time, God put me in a place where I have students who, like I said, they're like, we didn't even know that you were here, Dr. Walters. Oh my gosh.
Right.
I get a phone call yesterday. Will you be our Black History speaker? Will you do a TED Talk?
Yeah.
I'm having a difficult time navigating because it is challenging to be, I like to say, white spaces where there are far and few in between leaders or people of color who look like you.
Right.
So I love that.
Right.
I feel like I'm at the right place at the right time.
And so for me, I would like to know, what is the difference between a public and private school education when it gets to higher education?
Yeah, so funding is a big thing.
Oh, okay.
You look at, there are certain things that the state are going to mandate that you have. Private, we're a little more expensive, well, sometimes a lot more expensive, and we are governed by our board. So when we're private, we pretty much have the autonomy to make the decisions that best fit our mission and our vision and for our students versus the state. Sometimes, depending on where your funding sources are, you kind of have to make sure that you follow those parameters.
Okay, so you have more, power in how you operate the school.
Yeah, that's the autonomy. We get to make the decision. We're a Catholic, private, liberal arts institution, so we can make the decision. It is we make the decision on how we want our kids to be educated, versus going to another school where it's a large state school or even a small state school, but it's a state. So you're having to listen to legislators who make the decision on how your trajectory is supposed to go.
Got it.
Yeah.
So for you, I know you mentioned already, some of the things, you being in leadership and the influence that you're having, but what exactly is the impact that you want to have?
Oh my gosh, that's a good question. So I want to have a legacy of when I think back to when I was at TSU. I still am very close to my mentor, Lillian Potes. I mean, she's like a second mom to me. And I want to have the legacy of when I have students who graduate and matriculate through wherever I am, they remember me. And they say that this woman has made an impact on my life. I've gone into education because of her. And the interesting thing, it's happening now. I get a chance to see students who I taught years ago who are now coming through the system and they're getting their doctorates. They're starting schools.
Right.
I'm coming to speak to their kids or whatever. So I see that legacy. And that's important to me.
What's the value of having a doctorate? Because I feel like, like you said, students are like, oh, I don't know if I want to go to school or whatever. And for me, I can't fathom going back to school.
I mean, a lot of people are like, that is so great.
Yeah.
I'm never coming back. Like, thank you. Here's my degree.
But I have a friend right now and she's finishing up her, dissertation and, and she's actually at a private school up north. And so for her, and she's in education, that's what she needs. So what are the advantages or you feel like having a doctor?
Yeah, I think that what you just said, it's what she needs. And so it depends on what you want to do. Right. So I wanted to basically go into education. Never thought that I'd go into education. I love leadership. I love learning. And I want to always get to the highest. I want to get to the next thing. And so for me, after I got my master's, I was thinking, what's next? And so the doctorate was the next thing. But, for me, I'm teaching. So it gives you the credibility of having a doctorate.
Right.
It gives you that extra layer of education. And when you write and you publish in your topic, you become an expert. So people want to come to you and say, will you talk about this subject? You've got credibility. You've done a study. You've done the research.
You know what? I believe that people discredit the expertise space. You know, they discredit you being that person, like, hey, this is what I do.
Yeah.
And you need something to back up that credibility.
Right.
And so we forget that, and people are experts overnight now.
Oh, yeah. Influencers.
And,
Facebook influencers, social media influencers.
Yeah, all these influencers and people who are coaches and they're 20, and I don't understand. Like,
but I don't negate that, because
No.
I think there's a space for all of us. But I do think that there are certain things that, yeah, you do need to have the education behind you, because how am I going to talk to you about getting your master's and getting your doctorate if I've never gone through it?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So there's certain things, like, I'll give you a perfect example. My husband is a computer scientist.
Right.
Chris doesn't need a doctorate to do what he's doing, because it's a technical degree.
Exactly.
If he were to go back, he could teach or do research. But where he is in his space, he doesn't need that.
Right.
And he's still an expert.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So I think it just
and the years of experience help with that too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That calibrates it a lot, because if you've been in the field, like, I like hiring people who have actually worked, so that as a student, I mean, did you really do that, or is it just in a textbook?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I think that matters to kids. They're like, did you really do it?
Yeah, they want to know.
You were a principal, you were a teacher, you've been in the trenches.
Yeah. And they can ask the questions.
Yeah.
So
the real questions.
What do you feel like, or what are your thoughts on, you know, this big entrepreneurial push, you know, versus education? Because people are like, oh, I don't need this. I don't, you know, what
I think
are your
it's
thoughts?
a space for both, because again, I'm in higher education, and a bit of what I'm doing, because the higher education space is really tight now.
Okay.
Meaning students really have a lot of say-so and choices and options online, face-to-face, weekend classes. We're fighting for the same fish. So for me, I kind of have to have an entrepreneur spirit, because how am I going to get kids to my program? So there is space for entrepreneurialism.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, my husband's an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Loves it. And I'm like, I don't know if about starting my own business.
But he had to go to school, though, to get those.
The skills.
Yeah, the
but
skills.
not everybody does, because I have a family member whose boyfriend is a T-shirt.
Okay.
He owns a T-shirt business.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure if he went to school for that, but he's doing a great job, and he's
Exactly.
successful. And he's, you know, he owns his own business.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I like that you said
So I think
that.
it just depends on what you're doing. And so when I said that there are influencers who can, you know, be influencers overnight, I don't knock that, because I really do think that there's enough pieces of the pie for everyone. I just think that we have to be very mindful of if someone has they've gone to school for it and they're proven, then we have to kind of lead some credibility to that.
Right. So I know there's like a huge, like right now people are really talking about, because I know you mentioned like the price of education.
Yes. So
And
high.
It's
Oh my
so
gosh.
expensive.
Yes.
And so, you know, how do we navigate through those spaces, and then also saying like, okay, well, if I want to be in education, you know, this is how much money I could potentially make when I get out. How does this equate to me spending this kind of money or investing in my education?
I think it depends on what you want to do. I mean, I think sometimes, you know, like I said, I went into pre-med because I liked medicine and I liked the idea of skin and all that, but also like the idea of, well, I'm going to make money.
Yeah.
Not thinking about the student loans and the classes and all of
Right.
that. So you have to decide what you want to do and figure out what fits your lifestyle, what fits your pocketbook,
Right.
what fits what you're going to do with your time. You know, there are small programs, large programs, but you got to really do your research and not be sold on the new shiny thing.
Right.
You know what I mean? There's a lot of things, like right now everyone's talking about cybersecurity. And so my thing as a new dean is, how am I going to make my program more competitive to others, because our program is pricey because we're private. So we've got to give students more than they would get at a non, you know, because we're non-traditional in the fact that we're liberal arts. We're not into the tech space. We're breaking into the tech space with my program.
Oh, okay,
so there's a lot of buzz about it.
Right.
But we're competing with other big boys, and we got to figure out how do we get students.
So getting students, you just have to make it sound more attractive.
Yeah, but students are really savvy, and they know, like, okay, it sounds great, but what am I getting? How much am I paying? And can I get a job?
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, my board wants to make sure, Nicole, what is your ROI? What is your return on investment? My kids getting out and getting a job.
Right.
And not having a ton of loans and student debt, because that's another issue that, you know, we have to be very mindful of. Kids are graduating, and they're coming out, you know, being in debt, thousands and sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Right.
So for me to be a good steward of my program, I want to make sure that I'm not wasting their time and their money.
Leaner Creamer is coconut oil based and infused with natural herbal supplements that help boost metabolism. The only better for you all natural coffee creamer. The best part, it actually tastes really good. They're located in over 7,000 stores nationwide. So do yourself a favor and pick up a bottle today. You can find Leaner Creamer at leanercreamer.com/discount/best15. Use my code BEST15, that's BEST15. Right. But so what are I know now, because we've become, like you said, more savvy and we know more. Yeah. I remember when I was in high school, we didn't have the opportunities that the students have now coming out of school. And I'm like,
oh my gosh,
if I would have been able to
dual
do that.
credit, online,
I mean,
night
come
school.
on.
We have kids graduating that have a high school degree and an associate's. They come to us, they're already 2 years ahead.
Now, is that a competitive factor for you?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, because I'm trying to figure out how can I get in to offer this dual credit, because think about it, you're gonna go to school, already getting your high school credits, and then you still get to go and you get your 2-year degree. That's incredible.
Yeah. So do you think the colleges are going to have to realign or change some things to compete with that? That maybe instead of, you could just get right into what you're wanting to do? Because if I already covered this in college,
and you don't.
In high school,
So think about it. I'm the dean of what's akin to a community college.
Oh, okay.
So my students may come already with a 2-year. They don't really necessarily need my degree unless they want to come specifically for cyber or networking or electronic technology. But they've already gotten some coursework out of the way. Mm-hmm. So they're coming to our 4-year, because I'm still on the big campus. Right. And they already are 2 years ahead. Mm-hmm. So that's 2 years less than we have to have them. Right. Because they're ahead of the game.
So maybe even having that integrated into high school now.
Yeah. And a lot of high schools are being very smart, and they're doing that. Yeah. Colleges, we're picking up on it, because, again, we're trying to pull all these fish. Yeah. We want students.
And I believe that's is forcing the colleges to kind of,
relook at what we're doing. Yes. Because like I said, not everyone wants a 4-year degree. Not everybody needs a 4-year degree. I have another friend of mine who owns a business where he hires welders. Mm-hmm. They only need 18 hours, maybe 20, and they come out making $89,000.
Yeah, they make really good money.
Now, that's hard work, though.
Yeah, it is.
It's a laborious type of job. Yeah. But think about it. If you have someone who's like, I don't really want to do a 4-year degree, if I can do this 18-month program and come out making $89,000, I'm going to do this.
Yeah. Man, that's,
like, welding. I should have.
Your nails too cute for that.
Your nails too cute. And it's hard work too. I don't think I can do that.
Yeah, you don't want to do that. But I'm thinking, because I'm like, okay, so now, it's disrupting, education.
It is.
Which I love, because I like disruptive things, because it makes us work. Right. And it makes us think about, okay, now I have to create something where my consumers or whoever it is, right, where they want me. So
my
even
customers.
High schools, right? Because now people are looking at high schools. Well, why would I go to this high school when I can go over here?
Absolutely.
And and it's forcing high schools to create curriculum, where they're using things that we need, when we
kids
leave here.
Want.
Yeah, we want these things. So stop putting us in these classes that we don't need. We need things that apply to real life.
Exactly.
And so I love that, because we want that for our kids.
That's right. We want the good opportunities.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right.
So what for you, how do you feel like, let's say maybe 10, 15 years from now, what do you think, if you were in your position or doing something even new, what do you think that would look like?
Yeah. So I probably won't be a dean. Right. Uh-huh. Shelf life for deans is anywhere from 5 to 10 years. Okay. I'm probably going to be done after a few years, just because I'm ready to. I'm already thinking about, I want to master this really well, and then I want to master something else. I'm a lifelong learner, so I see myself in a next academic space, creating, leading, and working. 10 years from now is not that far off. I mean, it really isn't, because I can already think about, this is like moved. I've been at UST for 7 years. I cannot believe it.
Oh my gosh.
Just that quickly. And now I'm going into my 2nd year as being a dean of a brand new college. Right. So I think my next step is going to be, either being a provost or a chief academic officer, where I get to make an even larger decision. School's going to be different too. There's more online learning. Kids are not traditionally wanting to come to the brick and mortar, which is when you come to the actual building. They want to be convenient. They're working, they're parents, they're taking care of parents. They're in between the sandwich years.
Yeah.
So we want to make college affordable to their lifestyle.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of online learning, which my program, I didn't even mention it, but my program is online.
Okay.
So it's 100% online.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, 100%.
So when do you get to see them? Or
no, unless they come for orientation. But other than that, and we do that on Skype.
Okay.
But they are in the comfort of their office, their home, or another
Is
building.
it a lot of adult learners?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah, so these are people who are actually already working.
Okay.
And they have decided that they want to come back and get another degree.
Got it.
But I do have students who are now, they're freshmen or they're sophomores, and they're like, we want to take your program too. So they're doing both programs.
Oh, okay.
They're in the big 4 year, and then they're doing my program too.
Do you do you think that with the big push of online learning, I feel like we're getting further away from human touch.
You can.
Yeah.
You can. And I know at first I kind of pushed back on it because I was thinking I'm a traditionalist.
Yeah.
I believe in seeing kids in their seats. But that's not the reality because, again, we're working toward the customers and the consumers, and we have to cater to that. So I think professors can be really creative by saying maybe we're going to meet once a semester or we're going to meet once a month to have that interaction, unless it's out of state.
Okay.
And that's another thing as well.
Yeah.
But I think you can, you can lose the human touch. And we do hear that from students who are saying, I really kind of want to do the face-to-face. Yeah.
I hope that we don't ever get away from just online, just being in front of someone, period. Because I think for me, I'm a visual learner. I'm like a touch, feel, see person. And there are some things that I don't mind doing online, but I need to be in a seat sometimes to talk and see you. And sit
after class and sit at the desk and that is something that we also hear from students who say I need to come face to face. And so I think with this program we're looking at maybe having a piece where they can come to campus. But when we wrote the plan, it was an online program because we want to maximize the space and our resources. No, that makes sense. So what do you believe for you, especially since you're having such an impact and you touch so many people, well, by the way, how many people you think have you taught? Oh my gosh.
I know that number probably sounds crazy, but I'm curious.
So I'm thinking from pre-K all the way to college. Oh my gosh. I mean, a couple of tens of thousands. I mean, because I can think of the rotating. So I was in the public school system for 10 years. Okay. So that's that group. So, I mean, at least... a couple of thousand. Yeah, and you always have... And I have kids who still... Like I remember my 4-year-old who I taught, he was 4. Oh. And now he's about to have a baby and get married. And I'm on Facebook and he's like, stop talking to me like I'm a baby. I'm like, hey, Orlando. And I'm like doing a little happy face. He was like, this is my pre-K teacher. So, I mean, he's a grown-up now. He's like in his 20s. Yeah. And I taught him when he was 4. Yeah. Yeah. And he's, because Facebook allows you to have that, that touch.
So to you, how do you think what is discovering your best self?
A few things. Discovering your purpose, why you were meant to do what you're doing. And I've talked to my students about that all the time. When you are able to wake up and find out your purpose of why you're on this earth, that's a piece of it. Number 2, figuring out what really makes you happy. And number 3, what do you want out of life? So when you're able to figure out those 3 things, why you were here, what do you want? What's your purpose? That really helps you discover being your best self, because I don't waste time anymore. Right. And that's, people talk about wasting time and, life is so short, and it's lip service to a lot of people. But my mother passed away very quickly. And from that moment, I had to realize God has put me here for a reason. I have limited time on this earth. What is it that I'm really good at? What am I passionate about? And then what do I want out of my life? Not what my husband wants or what my child wants or what I want for them, but what do I want for Nicole? And now that I know that, my life and the lens that I lead my life is very different. Right. Very intentional and very purposeful.
How do you get to that point?
A lot of trial and error and talking to a lot of people and talking to mentors and looking at people who are in the space that you want to be in, but also surrounding yourself by people who are doing good things and who are making you want to elevate your game. Right. So if you have friends who, they're like, oh, why are you doing that? That's stupid. Well, I don't believe in discarding friends, but we may not be spending as much time with each other, because I want to be around people who are making me rise to the next level and want to do and be more. So for me, it's all about surrounding myself and my circles. And we have a running joke, a good friend of mine. We have circles because I have so many friends and associates and acquaintances.
It's different ones.
Yeah. And you know who, you have your nucleus and then you have others and you have others, but they all are very purposeful and very intentional to Nicole.
Yeah. Man,
and bring a lot of value
to
my life.
Value. Yeah. I like the value add. If we're not adding value to each other, what are we doing? Yeah.
I mean, it's great to like kick the breeze, but you can still add value in some capacity. But I think the other piece is we don't have a moment to waste. And that's what I like to tell. I train teachers and principals. We don't have a moment to waste. The world is changing. Yeah. The landscape is changing. Yeah. We don't have time to waste.
Right. Have you thought about doing some entrepreneurial things? I mean, I heard you say training. I'm like, I'm over here like,
I mean, so
okay.
Again, I have a really dear friend who she's always like, you need to be out there consulting. And I did it for a little bit. Okay. But that's the comfort zone of, I like being behind my desk. Or I like being in front of the students, right? But I am getting back out there because there's some things that I'm really interested in, like emotional intelligence for women and for leaders, women leaders, women of color. So there are some things that I'm really interested in talking about. And now I am kind of getting phone calls or messages. We want you to come and do a TED Talk. Or we want you to come and talk. And I'm like,
I think
I
TED
Talk. Money for that?
Yes. Yes. You know how much money these speakers are making?
I mean, yeah, but I just do it because I love doing it. And it's something that I want to get the word out.
Trip and fall into $10,000 on your
that's not bad. That's not bad at all. I'm okay with that. Call me.
Absolutely. So, I mean, I think that this was absolutely amazing. It gave me more insight into the higher education and, just how times have changed and how things are moving and how we just have to always be on it and on our A game. And no matter how long we've been doing something, we always have to sharpen our tools.
Right.
And so I appreciate you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me. This is fun.
Yes, I love it. And now I have ideas of some things that we can do together.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to talk about that.
Well, thank you for having me because I think what you're doing as far as giving a platform to people, women, I think that's important, and that's another space because there's never enough.
Right.
There are never enough voices at the table. So I think what you're doing is really extraordinary too.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much,
You're welcome.
Miss Nicole, Dr. Nicole Walters, for being here. And tell our audience how they can find you.
So a few things. They were laughing at me before I started. So I am on Twitter. I'm at Dr. Nicole Walters. I'm on Instagram, Professor1908, and I'm on Facebook. If you want to contact me at UST, my email is Waltern, WALTERN @STTHOM.edu.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Discover Your Best Self. Don't forget to subscribe and comment. Follow us on Instagram at Discover Your Best Self.